Okay, we're recording now then.
Okay. I'm calling the meeting to order. This is a special meeting of the Marquette Township Board, 3:04 p.m. and today is Thursday, July 9th, 2020. If you want to take roll call, clerk, please.
Trustee Wiegand,
Here.
Trustee LaRue,
Here.
Trustee Everson,
Here.
Treasurer Johnson,
Here.
Clerk Rattari is here, and Supervisor Durant.
Here.
Staff present is Manager Gerard, our new manager, John Kangas, Legal Counsel, Roger Zappa, and Planner Zoning Administrator, Jason McCarthy. John Marks is absent and excused. Trustee.
Okay, good. Thank you. Any correspondence, Randy, we need to worry about?
I will look. I do not see any.
Okay, no emails. So no board member comment. Need approval of the agenda, please.
I'll move to accept the agenda as presented.
Support.
Okay, roll call.
Clerk Rattari is yes. Treasurer Johnson,
Yes.
Trustee Wiegand,
Yes.
Trustee LaRue,
Yes.
Trustee Everson,
Yeah.
and let's see what. And Supervisor Durant.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0 and 1 absent.
I'm not aware of any conflicts of interest for this topic. So our discussion today is to consider a moratorium on large gatherings for the township. We talked on this briefly yesterday with another instance that came up, and I called the special meeting so that we could discuss whether or not to actually kind of curtail what happens in the township, since the governor is kind of giving us that directive anyway. Legal was kind enough to throw together a moratorium, and I don't know if you've all had a chance to read it. It's a page and a half instead of 18 pages, I guess. So that's a good thing.
I'll put it up on the screen.
Do you need to read it, Randy?
I don't, as long as it's in the minutes, which it will be.
You could read the last paragraph. How would that be?
Yeah. So the moratorium is on the screen now, and it's for a resolution for moratorium on temporary use permitted issuance for outdoor gatherings in excess of 250 people. So basically the last line says, therefore be it resolved, the Charter Township of Marquette or Board of Trustees resolves to establish a moratorium with immediate effect on the issuance of temporary use permits and zoning compliance certificate for outdoor gatherings in excess of 250 persons for a period of 90 days until further relaxation of criteria in Governor Whitmer's Executive Order 2020-115 or any ensuing orders that may be applicable, or until it is determined that the state of Michigan and Marquette Township in particular has entered phase 6 of the governor's reopening plan, whichever occurs sooner. This moratorium establishes, in the interest of health, safety, and welfare of Marquette Township's residents and visitors, in compliance with its zoning ordinance and possible prospective amendments, and in consideration of periodic update guidance issued by the state of Michigan's governor's office and the Center for Disease Control.
Excellent. Okay.
So that's the moratorium, and I got it here, and I will take it off the screen now.
Any questions of the board members or comments? Dave?
Did we get a copy of that? I checked my email about an hour ago and I hadn't seen it.
You should have it now, Dave. If you check your email, it should have went out.
Okay.
Anything else? Roger, any comments?
Well, as I indicated in the letter that went with it, this was something I put together after the meeting and after some discussion with the supervisor as an option. I hasten to add that it's not the township attorney's role to either attempt to sway, recommend for or against its adoption. However, it would certainly allow some clarification, some breathing room, no pun intended, during the COVID-19 situation that we have, especially with respect to large group gatherings above 250, because there's a real ambiguity between what constitutes what type of venue for this. So it is not designed to put a moratorium on other types of temporary use permits, such as Christmas tree sales, not that we would be having Christmas tree sales in the next 90 days anyway, but where you have small types of temporary uses. It's fairly narrow in its application. I did a fair amount of investigation with the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and I attached only one of those guidelines that I came up with. And the moratorium is within your authority. What you choose to do with that is strictly within the discretion of the board.
Thank you.
And I am open to any questions as far as why it's worded the way it's worded or anything like that, but that's it, unless you have questions.
Okay. Jason, do you want to add anything? I'm sorry, Dave. No,
Go ahead, Jason.
Go ahead, Dave.
Oh, I was just curious as this applies strictly to anything that a temporary use permit would be needed for, or any gatherings on public property?
It would apply to any gathering that a temporary use permit is required for, if that gathering consists of more than 250 people, and if that is an outdoor gathering. Because,
right.
and why it's worded in that manner is because of the language of Governor Whitmer's Executive Order 2020-115. Those are the categories that she is very specific as to. And the CDC is also pretty specific as to, they don't use the numbers, but they use large group gatherings and also gatherings within that category in the highest risk of people coming in from outside the local community.
Okay,
so
thanks.
It's fairly narrow in the sense that it's only applying to outdoor gatherings more than 250.
So what does this actually, then this can stay on the books, or does it still tie into the governor? So 6 months from now, the governor's, or a year, got us all released from everything. Will this still apply? Or is it tied to the governor's edicts?
No, it's actually for not longer than 90 days. Keep in mind, this is when we say tied to the books. This is in no way, shape, or form a zoning ordinance amendment, because you've got a completely different mechanism. You'd have to, that you would, if you wanted to change how you issue temporary use permits, that would require going through the planning commission. You'd have to have public hearings and so forth. This is just putting a hold for, under this resolution, not more than 90 days. That's the outside. And it may be that things have gotten worse in 90 days, so maybe we revisit it then. Or if the governor issues a new clarification or some revision to 2020-115 that overrides this, well, then so be it. Or if we move into phase 6, which is essentially a complete reopening of everything, it's of no force or effect. In order to continue this in 6 months, you would need to revisit the issue.
Right.
A moratorium should not, by its very nature, be more than a very short-term remedy, because there is case law indicating that long-term moratorii, if you want to be proper in your Latin, are are frowned upon except in real extenuating circumstances. This is probably a fairly extenuating circumstance, but even so, we should be erring on the side of caution and keeping this a very short-term enactment, if it's enacted at all.
Okay, Pete?
If something happens, and I doubt it's going to happen, that we all clear up and it's going to be all right. We don't have to wait the 90 days. The board can take action to get rid of the moratorium.
Correct.
Okay, Dan?
Yeah, if we pass this and somebody were to apply and say they have no more than 250 people, and then they have the event, who's to police that? Who's to say that they're not going to come and say, well, we tried to hold it at 250 and it went way over?
Well, that's what will be addressed. Then if it's projected to be less than 250, then it goes through the usual channel, and your zoning administrator will evaluate the plan that is presented. It wouldn't fall within the moratorium. And that's when the zoning administrator asks those questions. What are you taking into account in order to limit the number of people? What type of mechanisms are you using to require masks or 6-foot spacing or cleanliness of commonly touched surfaces such as toilet seats or hand washing stations or whatever? Those are all things that the zoning administrator would then evaluate when the application comes in, because it doesn't fall under this moratorium.
Okay, John, you were first.
I think I'd like to make a motion adopting the proposed moratorium resolution as presented.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I would second that, Lynn. It's Dave.
Okay. Pete, you had your hand up?
Good question. I think the question what Dan was getting at, correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, if the event goes on and it goes over 250, what can you do? First of all, you'd probably, is our zoning administrator or our police officer, will they shut it down if it goes over 250 people?
What recourse do we have if that happens?
This process to issue a zoning compliance permit is only that, to determine whether the event, in theory, meets zoning compliance. You're then back to
Violation of the ordinance. I mean, violation of your.
or the governor's, executive orders, and I guess you then get that issue of we've seen what's occurred locally and not so locally. Look at Oklahoma, for example, and the fallout that has occurred after certain events in Oklahoma. Those things are difficult to enforce, and different agencies have viewed it differently. Though perhaps not the most satisfactory answer, we'll have to cross that bridge when we get to it.
Roger, do you think something should be in there that if exceeded 250 people, they will be shut down?
Not in this type of a motion or a moratorium. All you're doing is refusing to consider
In
a
the
temporary use permit. It would go way beyond the scope of what you would be permitted to do in this type of a motion.
in the application, should we consider having that in there? If it exceeds 250, that they will be.
If the application is evaluated by the zoning administrator and the zoning administrator is convinced that it's a completely satisfactory plan that's presented, then that can be a term or a condition in the compliance permit that's issued.
Right.
But we're not there yet because this is a general
I know that, but I'm just talking
as
about,
opposed to a specific application. Um,
Short answer for Pete, we don't have any enforcement ability. We don't have the staff to enforce it.
that's what I was afraid of.
No, we don't. You know, our funded deputy sheriff may not be on duty
Yeah.
because we have specific hours that they work. So it would have to be a general patrol that would respond.
Jason?
Yeah, I'm aware of some businesses that have violated the executive order in the city of Marquette. One in particular was served citations by the city police for violating the executive order.
Mhm.
So, you know, I don't think we're going to get overrun with applications for outdoor events exceeding 250 people this summer. And this moratorium simply covers that time period, at least for the next 90 days, which is effectively summer. And at such time in the future, when that sunset comes through, then I think the board should reevaluate the moratorium and see where we're at then. All this does is say that from a zoning administrator's perspective, if they have an application that comes through at 251 people, I'm not going to review that application, or it's going to be denied. And anything below the 250 person threshold will be scrutinized just as it would with any other application, but it could be permitted.
Yeah, and basically what we're talking about here are new events, because basically all the ones that would be 250 or more in the township have already been canceled. The Forestville Fest has been canceled. We've canceled the Community Day. We've canceled the use of the facilities, so we won't be having the ball tournaments that typically we're being asked about. You know, so those are the things basically that have already been canceled, and this would just stop any further ones from looking to the township, because all the surrounding communities are canceling their events in their communities.
And to just add on that a little bit, part of the rationale here is any future event is obviously in the future, and we're in kind of a critical phase right now of seeing, are we going up or are we going down after 4th of July, for example, when there were, and this isn't unique to Marquette Township or Marquette County, but there were a lot of close in-person interactions across the country. So to approve an event at this point that's going to happen in the next 90 days, things could have changed quite a bit by then. So that's why it makes some sense, arguably, for a moratorium on these future events that haven't even been applied for yet at this point.
And then Roger, this does not need to come back to the board anymore, correct? Jason's got full authority to just do his job.
Correct.
Except maybe the 90 days if we look at it again.
Yes, that's what my hesitation was, yes.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. But in the course of him possibly reviewing any of these permits or requests, he can just do it. We don't have to be involved.
More than likely, yes. Could there be some type of a bizarre situation that crops up that we need to look at? I suppose, but I'm not thinking of any off the top of my head. And believe me, I've thought about it a lot in the last couple days.
48 hours, yeah. Just so the board knows that we don't have to keep doing this.
No.
Well, I guess, for instance, you know, that the board would probably be involved in would be, let's say that we do start seeing an increase, which we expect an increase in here in the area. And let's say the National Guard sets up a testing facility like they did previously. And you may have more than 250 people participating in that. We had 145 cars just at the testing here at the walk-in center earlier this week. So, I mean, it's possible, and that would be something that would be directed basically by the government. So we wouldn't have really a choice in that. We would have to do it.
Okay. Well, we have a motion and a support. So unless there's anything else, I think we've kind of vetted this pretty well. Randy, why don't you do a roll call?
Trustee Marks,
Yes.
Trustee Wiegand,
Yes.
trustee LaRue,
Yes.
trustee Everson,
Yes.
treasurer Johnson,
Yes.
secretary is yes, and supervisor Durant.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay. We have no public other, yes, Jason, you're kind of public.
Well, just so everybody's aware that yesterday, once the special meeting, this meeting was announced, I did transmit the denial of that permit to Dr. I'm sorry, what's his name?
Sonder.
Sonder, yeah.
And I did-
And I also, I sent along a letter with it basically, and it just explained in further detail why it was denied. And I added at the end that it is, possible that the township board would take action today to further solidify that decision. So I appreciate the board, and I appreciate us all being on the same page on this. I think it was a good move.
Yeah, thanks for everybody getting together. It was kind of quick, but we just figured this was a good option to kind of protect us going forward, at least for the summer. And it doesn't hurt anything. I mean, good to have protections in place.
Thank you.
Anything else? Sure. We have no public again, as I said. Any board member comment?
I'd just say, I think it needed to be done in lieu of what's been going on and what happened in the city, and we had to do something. We got to protect our people.
Well, we are receiving requests for the use of township facilities for some of these events that are being canceled in other communities. So it gives us what we need to be able to respond to those requests.
I think Mike said this morning that they were approached again, right? Didn't he say Dr. Songer came back to him?
He did. He didn't expand on that, but he said that there had been further contact.
Yeah. We did talk to, in fact, the sand supervisor was on this morning, so that came up again, that I had recommended them in the beginning, and she was thrilled. But I don't know.
The county fairgrounds.
Yeah.
I also transmitted a copy of the permit application and response letter to Lisa Bowers, who requested whether or not I made a decision on that. So I would look for a story to come out, good or bad. She's going to do a story on it. So she's usually pretty good to me, so we'll see.
Mm-hmm. She's very fact-based. Pete?
Lynn, would you or Randy consider writing something up in our next, in the August water bill, or the calendar on the back or something about asking the people to participate in masks and stuff like that, follow the rules, because there's so many. It's getting pretty close to home here. I mean, we got 6 within a mile of my house here.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it's just terrible. I mean, we'll not beat it if we don't all cooperate, and it's not very smart not to run around with masks and that, because as a person like myself who's trying to follow the rules, I'm getting kind of tired of it myself, but if we don't do it, it's going to continue on. And either that or just tell them to make their wills out, make sure they got everything up to date, because, it's going to be bad up here. I mean, look at the beaches and stuff like that. They don't take it serious yet, They're not available. It's going to hit home. It's getting younger and younger, but, when it gets close to you, you start thinking more about it. And I start thinking, hell, am I ever going to be able to go back to my normal life? Like a lot of stuff to do and people to see and that. And, even my family, I mean, we're sort of a hugging, kissing family and that. And they write notes on the driveway out there, or they come by and they have to sit out in the yard, or they sit 6-7 feet on the porch here. And that's not like us. And if maybe we can encourage other people to do it, and then within the 4 or 5 months from now, we might get rid of more of it and we can open up. Just a thought.
You see some of the pictures from McCarty's Cove and some of the video. It's pretty disheartening to think that they're so cavalier about this. I mean, I don't wear my mask 24/7, but I think everybody's got a kind of a baseline.
Yeah.
If you go to the store, or you're in a crowd or whatever.
when you leave town. I mean, just like they had on the news, the hockey team, 4 people that I know of are results of that, it's sad because you don't want them to be like that and someone die and it's just not right, We have to work together on this.
Can we do that, Roger? Actually, we'd have to word it. So if we were going to put something on the back of the utility bills, we'd have to word it so that we were mirroring what the governor's
Right.
saying, right? We wouldn't be able to, we can't interject any opinions or, just because it's us.
Yeah, you can. That's not stopping you because we're worried about our township, How many older people do you have? We always said we're an elderly couple. I mean, an elderly.
Well, you could do that by saying the governor's executive order or whatever, and there are multiple, well, there's 143 of them, but you could specifically reference states. If it's purely a factual dissemination of information, but as far as telling people what they should or are required to do, well, the township probably doesn't have that, should refrain from that. Let's just put it that way.
So we could do something just mirroring what the governor said, Pete, that bullet points or something.
Because friends and neighbors, so.
Yeah. Were you going to add something, Randy?
Jason had his hand up first.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see it.
Well, it was just a good initiative, bad judgment thought. I thought, Lowe's gave us 500 N95 masks. And I thought, well, it would be great to hand those out to those who need them at the township hall. But then I remembered the township hall is closed to the public. So if there was a way to distribute those somehow, that would be a nice thing too. I don't know how many public works would need, but.
Well, actually, we're in pretty good shape, but I think who's going to need it is going to be the local medical people because they're running short of PPE already. So,
well, maybe I'll drop them off to our one of the doctors here in town or get a hold of somebody.
Yeah, the comment I was going to make is given the governor's comments earlier this morning, actually 11:30 when she was on, and I haven't seen the whole thing, but I suspect that there's probably going to be a number 145. And Roger, they're up to 144 already, but I suspect there's going to be a 145 that is going to put some a little more stringent controls on folks that don't observe the masks. I know as of yesterday, Walmart has closed off all of their entrances except one, and they're using that for both in and out. They've got it manned, and if you don't have a mask, you're not going in. So I think where we're going to see is she may make a little more responsibility on the business side of it to ensure that people don't come into the businesses unless they're wearing a mask. What does that mean for us? She'll probably make it a misdemeanor offense, which means that likely for us, the sheriff's department would be charged with enforcing that, and they're probably not going to want to because they're basically a road patrol entity. They're not a consumer enforcing entity. So I don't know where that will go. Can't fault us. We don't have policing powers.
Dan?
Yeah, Jason, I was just wondering maybe you could drop some of those off up at the fire hall.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Are you there now?
I am there right now, yeah.
I can put them at the back door as soon as the meeting's over.
That would be great. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Perhaps you guys could distribute to the folks you work with at the hospitals, that might be direct recipients, but because I know they're running short. And the hospital, by the way, has closed off public visitors.
Right.
Bell too. Both of them.
Here we go again.
What else? Any other board member comment? Okay, and we have a couple motions, Randy, to review.
Yeah, the agenda was approved as presented, and the moratorium on large gatherings for the township was approved 7-0.
Okay, just one more motion.
So moved.
Support. Everybody.
Okay, another roll call.
Clerk Rattari is yes. Trustee Marks,
Yes.
trustee Everson,
Yes.
trustee Wiegand,
Yes.
trustee LaRue,
Yes.
treasurer Johnson,
Yes.
supervisor Durant.
Yes.
Motion carries.
334.
Okay. Thank
Randy,
you. Yeah.
Randy, I still haven't got that email come through yet.
Okay, well, I'll send it.
Okay.
And shut off the recording.
I will right now.
I'm guessing we didn't have any more emails now that I